Let me just tell our listeners they're listening to 99.1 FM CIDI. Here, your community radio station. This is The Alternatives. You have choices. I'm your host, Ilya Kavoukas, and my guest, Carol Faggy. And we've been talking about the wonderful benefits of reflexology, which is could be done on the feet, and some type of massage that could be done on the feet, hands, and ears. And you were mentioning a lot of stories that you could share with us. Do you have one that's jumping out the top of the head?
I have many, but let me tell you, when my daughter was about 12 or 13, we had a birthday party for her, and I didn't know that one of her little friends was severely allergic to cats, and we had 2 cats. And so immediately she began reacting. And so I took her home, because it was quite severe in her case. And as we were driving home, it was a 20-minute drive, I took her hand and I showed her on the hand where to press when she got home, so that she could begin unblocking, if you will, or opening up the tissue and helping herself to breathe better. And so she found it very interesting, and that was okay. And as soon as I got back home from dropping her off, she called me and said, I just want you to know that normally I'd be bedridden for at least 24 hours. And she said, I did what you told me for the last half hour. And she said, Mrs. Faggy, I can't get over it. I'm breathing perfectly, and it's as if nothing had ever happened.
Wow.
You know? Children,
wonderful.
of course, respond immediately.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
They don't have all the
That's
years
right.
of layers that we have.
Layers, yeah. As a matter of fact, reminds me of one of my stories in reflexology. I was out camping with a friend of mine, and she had 2 kids, and one of them was an infant, was a baby, and had been constipated for 3 days. Sorry. 3 days, and was just not happy, as you can imagine, and just cranky. And the mother was just beside herself. She says, I don't know how I'm going to last these days of camp here. She says, the baby is not happy. I said, what's wrong? And she goes, I'm constipated. So I said, well, let me do something. So I started massaging the feet of the baby in the area that
small intestine,
small intestine,
colon.
Large intestine, and as you know, we have to go very, very lightly for a baby. So I did not even 10 minutes, 5 minutes on one foot, 5 minutes on the other, and I started smelling this nastiness. I said, I think the problem's resolved, unfortunately. And I handed her the baby, like, here you go. She's like, what? Oh my God, is that what I think it is? And she was so happy because the baby had a bowel movement. 10 minutes after
Absolutely.
doing some reflexology on her feet. So I showed her the points in the feet, and if ever that to happen in the future, and she was quite thrilled. And the baby after was so happy.
Yeah.
And so were we.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know, Ilya, I work a lot with seniors, and many of them can't get around, of course, like they used to. So they're either walking with a walker or in a wheelchair. And when you do reflexology, even just for 15 minutes, you can see the color of the skin and the face change. You know, all of a sudden they get rosy cheeks. The blood circulation has increased, you know. And of course, because of that, then you have the lymph functioning and all the organs kick in. And so it's just beautiful to see. And in palliative care, many of our girls or gentlemen as well work in palliative care just to bring soothing relief. We don't do reflexology is really acupressure. It's a very old science. But the thing is that when you do very ill people, you don't work with the same kind of pressure. You just really, your object is to soothe. So you use more massage type techniques, with a little natural oil or cream to bring relief and to soothe. And you can actually help people with their pain, especially in palliative care, or often I'll visit people in hospitals. And do you know how many nurses are reflexologists? It's quite astounding. In my courses, I get several nurses each year, or we have in our chapter, we have a few doctors, In China, the biggest association has 10,000 members, the majority of whom are doctors. So reflexology is pretty well everywhere in China. Here we're a little behind, you know.
A little.
Yes. Our association was founded in 1976, you see, and in England it's been around since the 50s. In Denmark, reflexology is the therapy of choice, well over massage. They bring in reflexologists to the work world, to the business world, and we set up our little anti-gravity chairs, and we do 10, 20, 15-minute sessions, and the person can go back to work a little more awake, you know, and or with less headache or whatever the presenting, less stress generally overall. Yeah.
So reflexology can be used for anything really, from the elder to the babies to in between, dealing with the small little ailments to anything really.
Yes, really, to help. We're there to kind of back up the patient or the person. You know, as I said, we are certainly not there to diagnose or anything, but you'd be amazed as well as how many doctors know what reflexology is. And when my clients say to them, well, you know, this really helped me for my bronchitis or whatever, often the doctor says, well, keep it up then, because it's working, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love reflexology. I love receiving it, and I love giving it as a treatment as well. I love the reaction of people at the end of the session. They're always in a different space completely, and
yes, they almost float after, eh? Sometimes.
That's right.
Yeah,
one of my favorite comments was one of my first clients. She said, "It's like all my life I had ski boots on, and you took them off." After her reflexology treatment, it's like you removed my ski boots. You know? It's like, that's great. That's great. Yeah. So I understand you also do craniosacral.
What I do is called craniosacral reflexology. There's craniosacral therapy on the body. Reflexology is a different way of working through the feet or the hands, which actually accesses deep tissues in the body. And those of us that are using it, we're quite astounded to see how people are reacting with this particular therapy. It was founded by Dr. Martine Fohr-Alderson, who's actually coming to Knowlton in late April to do a training here. I bring people in from Europe a lot to do trainings, advanced trainings and stuff, and so she's coming to teach us. She's a doctor, osteopath, a homeopath, who's been practicing 50 years and continues to travel the world teaching this method. And it's a beautiful method, and it's it works very deeply on the body.
So can you describe a session? What is it that you do exactly?
Yes, well, a session is standard. Again, you take your shoes and socks off, and then you warm up the foot. But in craniosacral, you're listening for the fluids in the body and how they feel balanced or unbalanced. Difficult to explain right now over the radio, but I usually use charts and stuff. But it's basically, we work every aspect of the foot, but in a kind of a circular fashion, if you will. It's just a very different for the receiver to receive that than to receive regular reflexology, which is acupressing different organ points and stuff like that. So it's a technique we use our hands differently when we do it.
Okay, so it's still on the feet.
Yes, it's still on the feet.
And there's more of a listening. So does the person feel your hands on their feet?
Oh yes,
okay.
It's still acupressure blended in with massage.
Okay.
But our target is to work specifically the cranial nerves, the parts of the skull through the feet, mind you, the sutures of the skull, the deep tissues of the body. So we work in such a way that often the person will even have an emotional reaction, right during or after the session, So it does go pretty deep, and it touches on all aspects of the person. Yeah.
fascinating. Let me take this opportunity to tell our listeners they're listening to CIDI 99.1 FM. This is The Alternatives. You have choices, and my guest, Carol Faggy. We were talking about reflexology, and now we're talking about craniosacral reflexology, which is also on the feet. So this is all new to me. I've never even heard of this. This is great.
It's new in North America since about 5 years now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're having a